I want to share with you my cry for help. A few years ago, my life was like a drowning man in a river, desperately crying out for help, slowly dying with every second that passed. But then suddenly a hand reached out and rescued me. This is a bit of my story. I remember being in secondary school, working very hard to get to university. I dreamt of becoming an executive chef. I worked assiduously and eventually got all my qualifications. In fact, I finished secondary school as the most outstanding student in academics. I remember getting the acceptance letter, and I went to my mother and said, "Mom, I got through for university." She looked at everything and she said, "Son, we just don't have this kind of money." I was accepted, but I felt like I had received a rejection letter, because even though the door was open, there was no way for me to walk through it. I know many of you have felt like that at times. Doors have been open for you, but you just can't get through it. I want to tell you that life will open doors that God will close, because that's not the path that God designed for your destiny. And after being told I could not get to university, I wondered and I pondered, how can I make something of my life? How can I escape being a failure? And so I spoke with my brother one day and he said, "Why don't you consider becoming a police?" And so I took the police test, because I was passionate about policing, because my brother was a police. And so I took the police test and I passed. In the meantime, I decided to go to do my A-levels. But whilst doing my A-levels, 1 year passed, I did not hear from the police force. The struggles became so overwhelming at university, at secondary school, that I was wondering, how do I continue this process? I could not find food at times. There were times I could not find the resources to get even to school. There was one car that left my community at about 5 o'clock, and I had to get up every morning and take this car, because if I missed this taxi, I had to take 3 transportation to get to school, and I could not afford 3 transportation. And it came to a point where I became frustrated with God. I wonder what God was doing in my life, because I was serving Him diligently as a young man. I was doing that. I felt forgotten. And one night, I decided to cry. And I was led to Psalms 13. And this is how Psalms 13 goes. He said, "How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord, forever? How long will you hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemies be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Listen my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice when I'm moved." But this is the part that got me. "But I will trust in my mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord, because he hath dealt bountifully with me." In the midst of crying out to God, I felt the need to trust God. Hallelujah. And I started to worship God on my knees in my bedroom. And as I worshiped God, I heard my phone ring. Hallelujah. And as my phone rang, the voice said to me, "Take your phone up." Hallelujah. And so I took my phone up. And when I took my phone up and I answered the phone, it was a call from the police academy. And they said, "Is this Antonio?" I said, "Yes." They said, "We called you for an interview. You've been shortlisted for the Jamaica Constabulary Force." I started worshiping God right there and then, because after crying out with a broken and a contrite heart, After crying out to God, he finally listened. He finally opened the door in a moment of distress. In a moment when I gave it all to him, he opened the door. And in that moment, my life changed forever. I went to police academy. I eventually graduated, became a police officer. 1 year later, I went back to university. I went to university, pursue a degree in psychology. God changed what I wanted and he put me on the path that he wanted. And I want to speak to somebody today. You might be in a place where you feel like things are not going your way. But there's a cry in you. If you could just cry out to God and let go and let God, then God will open the windows of heaven for you and pour you out a blessing. You shall not have room enough to receive it. I don't know who under the sound of my voice, you might be going through a stage in your life where you feel like nothing is going your way. Will you just make your cry, trust God and believe by faith that what God has in store for you, doors might be closing right now, but God is opening doors behind the scene, because the path I was getting into, what I thought was going to be my destiny, wasn't where God was taking me. I wanted to become a chef, but God wanted me to become a therapist. God wanted me to be someone to impact lives all around me. Let God have his will. Let God have his way. Trust God today and let him lead you. God bless you. God keep you. Shalom.